All right, everybody. So welcome to everybody who's here, who made it on time. We're gonna get started right now. More folks will be joining us, and also not just today, but also the people that join us and just watch or record the videos later on as well. So welcome, everybody. First of all, Happy New Year. My name is Anya Leman, Innovation Director here at Ascender. I am extra excited today about not only about today's session and topic, but also just because this is our first event of the year. Here at Ascender, we have many ideas, new programs, and a lot of things just like on the works for this year. So I'm really excited that today you get to kick it off with our session. So welcome, and it's nice to see everybody. If this is your first time here at Ascender, Ascender is Pittsburgh's community for entrepreneurs. We offer educational programs, mentorship, expert coaching, business incubation, and run an entrepreneur-focused co-working space near Baker Square. You can check out more about what we offer, our upcoming programs, sign up for our newsletter in our website, and also Ben, our program coordinator here, will be sharing important links in the chat box. So make sure that you locate that right now. Today's event is part of our free monthly programming. Each month, we zero in on a topic that is critical to the success of entrepreneurs in our community. With the start of the year, we want to make sure that your business is staying competitive. We all know how important it is, and especially right now more than ever, for your online presence to be doing what you wanted to do, to really be out there, to be visible, to make sure that your brand stays competitive, so that you can bring as many clients as possible, and you can bring as much value as possible to all of the people that you want to touch with your business. So this month, our theme is Stand Out Online. You can find additional articles, videos, templates, and more to help your business get noticed in our January programs page. Once you refresh your website after today's session, we want you to learn a little bit more about search engine optimization, SEO, which just means, how can people find you easier and faster? So on January 25th, we will have Headstorm's Pittsburgh office facilitating a workshop that will help you create actionable steps to enhance your SEO. So save your spot now for our next workshop on January 25th. I want to take 30 more seconds to share another announcement. I wanted to let you know about an exciting opportunity for women-led tech startups. We're partnering with Chloe Capital and the RK Mellon Foundation to bring the Invest in Women Accelerator to Pittsburgh. This is an online in-person fundraising experience for 5 women-led technology companies from Allegheny or Westmoreland counties. Learn more about the program during their virtual info session next week on January 19th. And you can apply for this by February 11th. So today I am very excited to introduce our facilitator for this workshop, Abby. She will be joining. This is the first time that Abby is participating in an Ascender workshop, but Abby's organization Rebloom is also part of our incubator program for the 2021-2022 cohort. Today, she will walk us through design principles for creating simple but effective business sites. She will cover plenty of examples for us to figure out, different ways, different best practices to improve our websites, and also how to create user-friendly experiences for your clients. I'm gonna let Abby tell us a little bit more about her organization and what we're gonna cover today. So Abby, I'm passing on the mic to you.
Thank you, Anya. It's really great to be here. Before we begin, I wanted to share that this session is going to be pretty interactive, so I'd really appreciate if that you're comfortable, turn your cameras on, and yeah, we will get started. And also, before we begin, as I mentioned, it's a very interactive session, so take a few minutes to grab some paper and a pen or a pencil if you don't have any near you, because we will be doing an activity later on. All right, well, I hope all of you have some paper and pencil, and we will get started. So today's agenda is we will go over who I am, some introductions, and And we'll dive into website essentials and the pages that you need or would want. We'll go through a little bit of wireframing, and then we'll wrap up with some tools and suggestions. So to introduce myself, I'm Abby, and I'm the executive director at Rebloom. And Rebloom is an organization, nonprofit web agency whose mission is to make web development services accessible, affordable, and sustainable, especially for women and minority-owned businesses. We do this by connecting local and diverse talent to small businesses who might not necessarily have the resources to hire a web agency or work with a contractor. And the goal of what we do is to make sure that your website is in your hands and you're able to add to, edit, and maintain your new tech after you finish working with us. And the other person here today with me from Rebloom is Anjali, and she is our community outreach director. Anjali, I don't know if you're here, but if you are, say hi.
Yeah, hi everyone. I jumped in late because my camera wasn't working, but hi everyone. My name's Anjali, and as Abby said, I'm the director of community outreach. Hi Anya. And I've been with Rebloom for the past year and a half and have really enjoyed working with all the clients and being able to take a product from the ground up and see a small business have a website at the end. While Abby will be leading the session, I'll be in the chat. So if anyone has questions, I'm happy to answer them that way.
All right, thank you. And so before I started Rebloom, I'm going to start off with a story. And before I started Rebloom, I studied at Carnegie Mellon University and graduated with a degree in information systems, which is kind of like a combination of computer science and business. And I graduated in the class of 2020. So yes, I was a COVID graduate, and my official graduation isn't actually until May of this year. So something to look forward to. But right after graduation, I had a little bit of time and I had gone back home to like where my parents are from, which is Boston. And my mom's actually a small business owner. She owns a daycare just outside of Boston called Woods Edge Children's Center. And this was, again, remember, peak COVID. So April, May, June of 2020. And she really needed help with her online presence because what she was doing in terms of marketing was in person and it just wasn't effective at the time. And so she knew that she needed a website, but she didn't really know the next steps or why it was necessarily important. And well, we all know why websites are important. 79% of entrepreneurs with a business website expect to grow at least 25% in the next 3 to 5 years compared to 64% of those without a site. And there are a lot of statistics out there, so I won't go through all of them. But what actually makes a website effective? And now I'm talking about effective as opposed to a website that's pretty. What is it that makes a website good to use? What is it about a website that makes you want to keep clicking and clicking deeper into the site as opposed to getting frustrated and leaving? Well, let's take a look at some of the websites for organizations in the local Pittsburgh community, starting with Ascender. So I think Ben is going to drop a link to Ascender's website. And I want you all to go poke around and either drop in the chat or call out what is great about the website, what makes it really easy and fun to use, and maybe what can be frustrating or could be improved about this website. And I'm sure Anya and Ben will tell you that they won't be offended in any way.
Definitely don't be shy.
Maybe Anjali, you can kick us off with some ideas.
Yeah, to kick everyone off, one thing that I really like about the Ascender website is the color scheme because it's very consistent. I like how they use orange in the buttons that kind of draws the eyes towards the thing that you want your eyes drawn towards. And it's very professional and not distracting. So I kind of get a feel for Ascender's tone, even if I don't necessarily know who they are yet.
I see Drawer in the chat called a clear call for action at the top. For those that don't know what a call for action is, Drawer, do you want to share? What do you mean by that?
Well, when you go to a website, what can I do with this information? And if you see in this website, it's like right at the top. Book an I think it was, yeah, I'm at least a membership. It says book an in-person tour, book virtual, get a day pass. So it's like right, you don't have to scroll or watch a video. Well, that's, I guess the call to action was better on the membership page. I didn't realize it was on the home page, but still.
Yeah.
And on that page, I also like that, I mean, it kind of anticipates. So let's talk about the membership or the co-working membership page, because that's where the call for action is clear. And then obviously, if you want to use a co-working space, you want to see what it looks like, and that's right there, the next, as you scroll down. And then yeah, a little more information about being a member. So I like how this one is laid out.
Great, thank you. Yeah, so a clear call to action. So what is the goal of coming to the site? It seems like a center wants you to watch their video or contact them, probably to learn more about their different program offerings.
I think Chelsea had her hand raised.
Oh yeah, go ahead, Chelsea.
Hi, I'm sorry, my video is acting up today, but I like the fact that everything, if you didn't want to go to another page, at the home page, you learn a lot of the information. If somebody didn't want to click anywhere else, you can subscribe to the newsletter. You can see, you know, what kind of the overall picture of the website is and what the business is.
Great, yeah. I think Sarah, you also have your hand up.
Yeah, I kind of don't like how many sections there are. It's a lot of information and it's all kind of chopped up into a bunch of little things. I feel like I wish that it could be cleaned up a bit and there'd be like the front page kind of alluded to those things. And then, I don't know, I feel like it could be cleaned up a little bit.
Yeah, great, thank you. Yeah, this definitely, the Ascender definitely has a lot of pages, a lot of information. So this is how they chose to organize their information, but there are definitely alternative ways as well. Moving on, let's do the same exercise, but for a local restaurant based out of downtown Pittsburgh. This is Apollo's Cafe, and they specialize in Mediterranean, vegetarian, American cuisine. So maybe for others, poke through it and let me know what you like, what you find effective about the site, and maybe what you might not find as effective about the site. And feel free to call out or just drop in the chat.
I think something that I liked about it, looking just immediately at the photos taken, immediately it's professional photography, and if I'm looking at food that I want to see about eating, I want to make sure it looks good. So I think that's the first thing I saw.
Great. Any others?
I think again, what you want to know is up there. I mean, many restaurants, you go to the website and you're like, where's the menu? And what am I like? It's a restaurant. Like you go in, it'll give you a menu. So if you go to the website, you want to get a menu.
Thank you. I see a few others in the chat. Amber says, I like how easy it is to understand the photos. Or understand, but the photos aren't clickable. And then another from Vivian, good photography, simple layout. And then Chelsea's comment was, I don't like the color choices. Okay, any other comments?
Maybe just because I have a restaurant background, I don't like how, like the menu, it just says like hot turkey and cheese. It doesn't like describe the dishes. It doesn't have any like ingredients. It doesn't describe how it's plated. Like, so like I couldn't order online, for example, from this website because I feel like I'd have to ask a lot of questions about the dish, which I could do in-house, but not online. I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's very, very good feedback. And I see one more from Maria who says it's clean, which I assume means referring to the design as clean. I would hope the food is clean. Oh, geez. Okay, so some of the things I heard some of you call out is the navigation is helpful or unhelpful. There's clear call to actions or clear next steps from the website, contact information. And also one thing that I didn't hear many of you mention is responsive design. That's also contributes a lot to how easy to use a website is. Not because most people don't just access websites from their computers anymore. More and more people are accessing websites from their phone, tablets, even their car. I think Tesla has like a cool feature that you can go online. So all of these culminate into something called user experience. So user experience is defined as the experience of a person when they navigate either a website or a web application from beginning to end, and how easy it is to use. So a good user experience means that your user is able to find what they're looking for to achieve their goals on the site, but then a bad user experience might be, it's really difficult to achieve those goals. Maybe your site is slow, or maybe your site is confusing. I'm sure many of you have experienced going onto a website, getting frustrated and leaving after a few minutes. And so this is what people are referring to when you hear the terms like UX design or UX research. That's what the UX is, user experience. But also related, you'll often hear UI that has to do with user experience. So UI is actually a completely different thing, but related. UI is user interface, which has more to do with the design of the site itself, so the colors, perhaps the layout, whereas experience is thinking about the user journey overall. So in regards to user experience, these are some of the things that you want to keep in mind as you're thinking about your website. How do you want the user to be interacting with your content? Do you want the user to click or hover for more information? Is it that you want them to fill out a form? How is it that you want them to actually interact with what you're presenting them? And then more importantly, what is the end goal of having the user come to your site? Is your website meant to be informative only, or is it so that they'll make a purchase? Is your end goal for them to sign up for something, whether that's an email list or something else, maybe a service? Other things that are important to consider when thinking about user experience are user flows, call to actions, information architecture, oops button, visual cues. So let me go back and explain what some of these things are. So user flows means that it's the experience of a user going through your site. But as many of you know, websites don't typically just have one type of person or user. You might have people that come to your site for different reasons, and all of these different reasons have different outcomes and different goals. So when you're thinking about a website, you want to think about all the different types of flows or experiences someone will go through to get what they're looking for. Another is call to actions. I think Jor put it really nicely earlier. What is the goal of having your user come to your site, and how do you want to get them there? Do you want them to learn more? Do you want them to sign up? And you want that big, and you want that very place somewhere where it's always visible. Another thing to consider is information architecture. Someone mentioned earlier that the Ascender site was kind of confusing. Well, if you have a lot of information, it's important to think about how to organize the information. An oops button is, it's important to have a way to undo something. Think about how frustrating it would be if you added something to your cart, but you couldn't remove it. Or maybe you open the lunch menu on a website, but then you can't go back to all the menus or something like that. So it's really important to have a way to go back. And then finally, visual cues. You want a way to indicate that you can learn more or go further into the site. So this might be when you hover over a link, the link changes color, or maybe your mouse itself changes the shape. These are all things that contribute to a great user experience. Now thinking about that, we'll do one more, well, we'll see how much time we have. We'll do one more case study. This is Project Scale Up, and this is a consultant company. Thinking about all the user experience suggestions that I had in the previous slide, what do you think makes or breaks the user experience of the site? And I'll leave these up here so you guys can refer back to it. Dan, do you have any ideas?
Thanks for the call out. I think initially when I was kind of scrolling through, it's obvious that achieve growth is what they want you to hold on to. As I'm scrolling through, I think it does get cluttered when you go to services and you scroll down and you see a lot of different services and different pricing options. So I do think it's a little bit of an overload. And what I'm thinking is there might be an opportunity to kind of space that out a bit more to ease in people into discussing those things.
Great. I see in the chat, the call to action buttons look small. And Chelsea says the ability to book is clear and easy. So about could have been closer organized to services, right? And so who do you all think was maybe her target user, and what do you think that the goal she had in mind for this target user? Like, what do you think is the point or goal of this website?
I'll call myself out this time and say, I think if you're just going off of the top different lines, when you go to the homepage, she kind of shows who she is, says, hi, I'm Tammy, but then also you have clients and you have case studies at the top. So it almost seems like you want to stick out based on different case studies or different user experiences that she's worked with. So I think it might be a convincing function. Yeah,
it's a convincing function. I think ultimately her goal as a consultant is to gain new leads, to probably sign more contracts. So the goal of this site is probably to gain leads through emails or contacts, etc. Now, this might be very different from, say, a business like this one, which is a hair company. She's a products-based company, so she's not necessarily looking for leads, but maybe the goal of the website is to have people actually purchase items or learn more about their products. So it's really important to keep in mind what the ultimate goal of your website is, because websites don't exist in a vacuum. There's always a greater goal, whether it's to gain more traffic or to gain sales, gain leads, sell products. That's all really important to keep in mind. So now that we talked about the objective of your overall website, each page on the websites also should have an objective, and they're very different. So for homepage, the objective is to serve as a teaser and trustworthy guide towards the pages that have the necessary information. So quite often, if you look at the analytics of a website, the highest what people call bounce rate, or the rate in which people leave the website after visiting, will be from the homepage. So your goal really is for the homepage is for you to capture people's interest and to push them deeper into your website, whether that's contacting you, learning more about your business, or looking at what you have to offer. So if the homepage is to serve as a teaser or trustworthy guide, it's supposed to be more of a table of contents for the rest of your site. So how are you going to achieve that? Well, you might do that through featuring main areas of your site or having clear next steps or call to action. So you might have learn more to bring people to your about page. You might have sign up and bring people to your services page. But additionally, you'll probably want some attention grabbing content on your main page as opposed to your services. Service page, you can list out your services, but on the main page, you probably want videos or interactive elements that are clickable, or high quality photos to grab the attention of your users. As I said before, each page has a very different objective. So if the homepage's objective is sort of a teaser, then let's look at a different page. The contact us page might serve a very different function. So typically a contact us page, they exist to serve the user with the purpose of providing them with the information on how they can get in touch with you. So you might do this through contact information, including your phone, email, social media, a contact form for direct inquiries. They might want to know your hours to come in person. So these are all things that you can include on your contact us page. And it's important as you're designing different pages to think about, again, what is the goal and how do you want to get your users to said goal? So now it's your turn. Let's think about how to create your company's ideal website. And I know many of you probably already have started work on a website or maybe have an existing website. So if that's the case, think about how you could improve your existing design, or maybe you're interested in adding new features, some new pages. You can think about that. So before you even begin, plan. So as I mentioned before, it's important to think about the goal of your website. Is the goal to be informative? Is your goal to collect emails? Is your goal to gain leads? Is your goal to sell products? From there, you want to think about how to actually achieve those goals. Are you going to inform people through case studies? Are you going to collect emails through a contact form? Are you going to sell products by sharing how great your products are, etc.? Then after all that planning, then you can kind of think about how do you want to organize all this information. So pages to consider I have on the right. These are pretty standard across most websites. The most basic pages, whether or not they're called these things. Sometimes About Us page might be called History, but really they serve the same purpose. So after you plan what's next, well, it's really important to organize your information. This is a sitemap that we did for another website. And they had so much information, especially in the About Us section. They really wanted to focus on sharing their history. So in order to make their pages less cluttered, because you only have so much space in your menu bar, it may be very helpful to think about how you want to organize the information, maybe find the pages that are similar and then categorize them. And then from there, you have an idea of what will go in your navigation bar. Also, this will help you think about the big picture of your website. If you just start with one page, your information might get very convoluted, whereas if you plan, you'll have a clear idea of what your end goal will look like. See, Amber has a question.
Yeah, so the About page, the large blue block, is like you click on the About page, and then those lower blue blocks, are they drop downs from that About page, or are they part of that About page?
So in this case, they were drop downs and you couldn't click on the About. So it's really up to you. Again, this is why you do all this planning. But sometimes you'll see that you can click on the navigation bar and that will lead you to a page, but there might be drop downs so you can go to those sub pages from the main page. Other times you might see that you can't actually click on the menu item, but it'll trigger a drop down and then you can pick those pages. Maybe in your case, it could be helpful to organize all the information you want, but you only want 5 total pages. This could be a great way to organize that information as well.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Okay, so now that you have all your information organized, you're done planning, right? Well, no, let's prototype. So it's important to actually start planning with prototypes. So typically in the industry, people will use what is called wireframes. So on the left, you have low fidelity wireframes, and then on the right, you have high fidelity wireframes. And what is a wireframe? They serve as a blueprint for your website, and you want to focus again on the function of your site. Note that in the left 2 wireframes, there's no color, there's not even pictures. Really, there's not even any content at all. You're just focusing on the big picture, where are things going to go, and how is your site going to function, and how do you go from one page to the next. Very often, designers will use paper and pen to do this, or maybe like nowadays, tablet and like a tablet pencil. But the goal is to just get your ideas out on paper. Once you're ready, you want to iterate, get some feedback. It's really important to get feedback at each stage because, as you might have guessed, drawing on paper probably takes an hour. But then if you did your whole site already before you ever got feedback, what happens when the feedback isn't great? You might have to scrap a lot of your site. Way easier to scrap if it's paper versus an entirely coded website. Once you've finished with your paper prototype, then it might be time to move on to something called a mid-fidelity wireframe. And there are a lot of programs out there that are free, some are paid. Some of the popular ones might be Sketch or Figma. You might have heard of some of these. There's UXPin, Balsamic, tons out there. You do a quick Google search and many will pop up. This stage is for you to really think about what your site will look like digitally. And, often they'll have templates, maybe like a phone screen for you to try to move elements around. What will it look like on a phone versus like a laptop or something like that. Once you get feedback and you feel like you're ready to move on to the final stage, then designers will come up with something called a high fidelity wireframe. This is when you start to add in the colors, the pictures, the content, etc. And then if you happen to be at a big corporation and where they separate the design from the development, then maybe the designer passes it off to the developer, and the developer takes these wireframes and put them, like, actually code up the site. Now, if it's just you and it's just one of you, you can choose to just do low fidelity and mid fidelity, and your final will go online, or you could do just a low and a high fidelity. You don't have to do all of them. Again, these are just tools to help you plan your website. Now, after you do all this planning, you're ready to create your website, right? Well, yes, but there are also lots of things to consider while you're doing your wireframing. So things to consider are, again, as I've emphasized, user experience. Why is the user on your site, and how do you get them to do what you want them to do? Another thing to consider is design. What features are expected for websites in your industry? So I think earlier someone called out that for a restaurant website, it's pretty standard to find the menu. So if your menu is really difficult to find, then you might be put at a disadvantage. Another restaurant example is if it's really standard in your industry to be able to book reservation online and you don't allow for that, then again, you might be at a disadvantage depending on the type of restaurant you might be. Other things to consider are ADA, mobile, and SEO. And these are all things that you want to think about in your design process, because it's way easier to think about it in the beginning versus finishing your website and then going back and doing it all again. So what do I mean by ADA, mobile, and SEO? Well, ADA is the Americans with Disabilities Act. Similar to building a ramp to make your building accessible, websites too also have to be accessible. So things to consider are color contrast. If someone has color blindness, how easy is it for them to actually see the content or your website? Same thing with alt text, closed captioning, tab, accessibility. These are all things to consider, and you can go down a deep rabbit hole at ADAs, and so I will just brush on it today, but there's lots of resources online that you can refer to. Another is mobile. As I mentioned, more and more users are viewing sites on their phone. I think something like 50% of consumers actually visit e-commerce stores on their phone nowadays without ever looking at it on a laptop. So if your mobile view is just a really shrunken down version of your desktop view, that is not a great user experience. So sometimes it might be worth designing a separate version for phones, but a lot of tools nowadays actually take your design online and they'll change it into something that's what people call responsive. So it can adapt to your phone of different sizes, tablets of different sizes, and even screens of different sizes. The last one is search engine optimization. This is actually a huge rabbit hole to go down, so I won't go too into depth, but SEO stands for search engine optimization, and it really means how quickly does Google or another search engine, maybe Yahoo, can pull up your site when searched for. So Sunder is having another workshop on SEO later this month. This is a very, very important topic if you're planning to do any marketing with your website. So definitely come to that. And I think Ben dropped a link in the chat. So now, after all of this planning, I would like you all to now go and try to do a little bit of paper wireframing. We'll spend probably 15 minutes drawing. You can draw maybe your home page or a new page, or maybe an update to an existing page, but don't get stuck on a detail. Just put your pen to paper and do one sketch per screen or one sketch per idea. And this is supposed to be messy. This is not the time to be a perfectionist. That's for a higher fidelity wireframe. And if you're done early, feel free to iterate. This is all about a process of improving on your designs. There's always things to improve on. And then we'll come back in 20 minutes or 15 minutes and we'll break into breakout rooms to share what you guys are working on and hopefully give each other feedback. Amber, I think your hand is still up. Do you still have a question or?
No, I'm that person. I'll put it down.
All right, sounds good. And if anyone has any questions, feel free to, I guess, message myself, Anjali, and then I think Anya and Ben are still monitoring the chat. Okay, and we're back, I think. So everyone, if you did not get the chance to upload your wireframes to the Google presentation, you can perhaps take a picture of your paper prototypes or wireframes with your phone. You can share that way, but I think Ben is going to break everyone into breakout rooms with 3 to 4 people, I think. And the goal here is to really get feedback. A big part of the design process is to get continuous feedback. The feedback you give should be specific. So if you like something, don't just say it looks good. Try to share like what it is about the wireframes that look good. Is it specific like call to action that you like or something like that? And then if it's bad, don't say it's bad because nothing is bad. It's just it's the chance for improvement. So what is it specifically that you feel like there's opportunity for improvement? And that's it. I think we'll do feedback for 15 minutes, so 3 to 4 people. So each person should get like 3 to 4 minutes of feedback, I think. And then we'll come back together and we'll talk about, now that you have wireframes, now that you have your wireframes, what's next? Everyone is back. I hope that was useful and that everyone had the chance to share. But if you didn't get the chance to share, you would like more feedback, myself and Anjali, and also our head of UX and design at Rebloom, will go through and add some comments. And then additionally, if you would like to meet with us, we're hosting office hours next Monday in the evening. So you can drop in and get some, like actually talk to one of us and get some feedback on your ideas. It's okay if you don't have wireframes. If you just have ideas you want to talk about, feel free to come by and chat with us. Okay, so hopefully you all got some great feedback, but now you have a wireframe. What's next? So many of you might have noticed that the wireframes in the first 2 iterations don't have color. And that's because we want you to focus on the functionality. But now all of that is built. What's next? Well, you do want to start thinking about the color and the aesthetic of your site. But again, design should be strategic, not just aesthetic. Aesthetic is part of it, but it's not all of it. And there are a lot of design principles you can design your branding around. There's like monochromatic, analogous colors, complement. There are just a lot of options, but more importantly than that, it's important to have a brand kit. What do I mean by a brand kit? A brand kit looks something like this. You want to think about the colors that represent your company and maybe a set of typography that represents your company, as well as, and all that should culminate into a logo. And you should store this somewhere. And anytime you go ahead and design your page or maybe social media or even flyers, you will want to refer back to this brand kit. That way it's documented. So if you're working on marketing materials, you can refer back to your brand kit. But if you hire somebody, they'll have something to build off of as opposed to coming up with new ideas every time. But how did we get here? If design is not just about aesthetic, how did we get here? Well, this is Rebloom's brand kit, and we're currently going through a redesign, so I can actually walk you through our process. So our main theme that we wanted to convey is that we're warm, we're community oriented, but yet we are still a tech company. So the colors we came up with were the blue and the green, and the shape. We wanted some soft shapes as well as some warmer supplementary colors to complement the technology. It's pretty difficult to both be technology, which tends to be colder, as well as community focused, which tend to be warmer colors. And how did we even get to this community, technology, and warm? Well, we started with our values and our mission. So all of this culminates into a few colors and some shapes, but we didn't just pull them out of thin air. We really thought about who we wanted to identify as. So after we did a lot of brainstorming, this was the rationale that we ended up with. As I just mentioned, the blue and the green are supposed to be tech focused, and then we wanted to bring in that community feel, so we brought in some of the yellows. And then also as part of your brand kit, you want to think about how those colors and font or typography is going to be used. Because if you just have colors, it's hard to know how you're going to use them. And for us, we had a few templates that we designed in thinking about how we wanted our colors to be used. Do you want our yellow to be background? Do we want it to be foreground? Do we want it to serve as highlight? All these things are really important to think about as you think about the design of your site. And once you have a brand kit, it's way easier to think about how your site is going to be designed in terms of colors, as opposed to trying to just color in your wireframes. So as a recap, user experience. Why is the user on your site, and how do you want to get them to do what you want them to do? This is going to be so important throughout your design process. It's okay if you don't have wireframes right now. It's okay if you're in the stage prior. It's actually more important to spend time on answering these questions before you actually go into the design phase. Design, I just very briefly touched on it, but design should be strategic and not just aesthetic. Think about your brand or your mission, your values, your vision. What feeling do you want to instill in your potential customers when they think about you? All of that should culminate into a standard set of colors, typography, and maybe a logo, maybe some images that you want to have consistent throughout your site and perhaps social media or print material. Last piece is, don't forget to keep in mind ADA, which is American Disabilities Act compliance, mobile views and responsiveness, and SEO all throughout the process. These, in today's age, are no longer nice to haves. They're really actually more of must-haves when you think about your site. So now that you've done all this planning, what's next? Well, it's time to actually build your site. And I know this may look really daunting to many of you. However, it's great that in today's day, you don't actually have to code anymore to actually put together your site. You can take your wireframes and you can do it yourself. There's a lot of no code to low code platforms out there. At the top, you have the no code platforms that are very rigid, really difficult to mess up the design. I promise you it'll look really good no matter how hard you try to mess up the design. However, it does mean that there's less flexibility when it comes to features. But if you're looking to do a very simple site, maybe like 3 pages, just your information about who you are, contact us, and maybe services, great place to start. On the lower end, you have WordPress and Webflow. Those are a little bit more flexible with a lot of plugins. However, I would say it does require a little bit more of a learning curve. So if you're less comfortable with technology, I would definitely recommend starting at the top. But if you're very comfortable with technology, I would recommend some of the ones on the bottom. Those are what we call low code. So the bare minimum requires no coding, but if you want to customize, you'll probably want to do a little bit of coding. But the great thing with all of these platforms is they're great support networks, support communities, lots of YouTube videos that teach you how to do this, as well as like free classes online that will teach you this information. If this is still very daunting to you, the great news is you don't have to actually do it yourself. You can work with someone. You can find a contractor, or you can work with Rebloom. And this is how we do it. Rebloom has a 10-week process in which our goal is to help you get started on your website. And at the end of your project, our goal is to ensure that you know how to add to, edit, and maintain your new website. So for us, we take an initial consultation to make sure that we're actually a good match for each other. If you're someone that doesn't want to touch their tech again, hand it off to someone, we might not be the best fit for you. But if you're someone that does eventually want to maintain their site, then we could be a good match for each other. In week 1, we start with research and recommendation. We want to ensure that you're set up for success. So we want to understand your budget, your technical abilities, as well as your business goals, so that we are setting you up on the right platform and planning your website to meet those goals. Then weeks 2, 3, 4, we really work on website design and implementation. We go through the same process that you do, figuring out who are your users, what is their goal, what does that design look like, and then we actually go in and actually build that website. Now, week 5 is our favorite week. We do user testing. As I mentioned all throughout the presentation, it's important to get feedback. So after we've built the site, we put your site in front of real people before we launch it live. And then week 6, we spend time implementing that feedback, and you'll get a report on the feedback you got. This is also a great time for you, if you have like a few focus group questions, we can sneak those in as well during our user testing process. Week 7 and 8, we do QA testing. That's when we check ADA, mobile, things like that to ensure that your site is up to a certain standard. And then weeks 9 and 10, we focus on future. So we think about, what is your plan with your website beyond us? Are you going to be editing it weekly? Is that monthly? Who's going to be the point person? What happens if your site breaks? We answer all of those questions. And at week 10, we hand off that project back to you, and you'll now know how to add, to edit, and maintain that new tag. With that, I think that is the end of the presentation that I have. I'll take any questions, but I guess before the questions, if you have feedback and I didn't get a chance to talk to you, you can leave it in the slide deck. We will be leaving comments, and then next Monday we have our office hours, and you can drop in and chat with us. And with that, I'll open the floor for any questions. Or maybe we don't have any questions because my presentation was just that good.
If you would prefer to leave them in the chat, we're happy to answer that way too.
I can probably ask a question that, you know, Abby and I, we talked about some parts of my website, something that I'm actually wondering, the maintenance piece. I think, you know, whenever you're saying if it's someone who's handing it off or wants to touch it again, what does that level of touching it again look like that you're describing?
Could you elaborate just a little bit more about what you mean?
Because I'm thinking, you know, I think I built my first website was on WordPress, and then my second one was on Bubble. And if someone would have said I had to do maintenance to the site, I would have just thought like updating things, but not actually thinking about things crashing or thing like links, or like right now everyone's like, you know, it's so easy to redirect your old website to your new one, and it doesn't work. Like they're just things like, you know, unless you're a coder or, you know, backdoor things, like, you know, what's maintenance look like for people who have some kind of technical ability compared to people who don't?
I guess that's something that is going to be very unique to each individual. So if you
well, what's like your line, right? What's your thought process in like maintenance, whether it's a person who's technical or not? Here's a level of maintenance that you would have to do if you're not technical, and here's a level of maintenance you would have to still contract out for.
Okay, sure. So again, it depends on your technical abilities as well as what platform you're set up on. So for the sites that I showed earlier, the Squarespace, Wix, and Shopify's, those typically don't crash really, because your hosting or where your site is located, as well as the content for the site, it's all together. So unless the entire Squarespace server site goes down, your site won't go down, unless something massive like the Facebook outage happens, which very rare. So if you are someone that's not comfortable with even the terms like hosting, domain name, all these things, highly recommend a platform where everything is bundled together. You just pay one fee and your site is always going to be up. If you're working with a WordPress or a Webflow or some like maybe custom pages where your hosting is separated from there, then I'll say there will be a certain level of maintenance in terms of if you ever have to move your domain name or change your hosting provider, if you don't know how to do that, it's very likely that you're going to want to contract that out. In terms of those, typically you sign a service level agreement with the contractor. What that will look like is it's usually a year, maybe 6 months of service, where they'll check in on your site once a month, maybe push updates, check for any errors. And then if your site ever crashes, it's their responsibility to make sure it goes back up. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm thinking. Like, if somebody could said, here's a place that you build and it will always stay up, then you should build here.
Yeah, that's why we at Rebloom, we think it's really important to do all that research ahead of time so that we're setting you up for success. We see quite often where businesses get a really beautiful website that's custom coded. So now whenever they want to make a change, it can get pretty sticky. You know, if you don't know how to code, how are you going to edit your own website? So at Rebloom, our goal is to ensure that you are set up for success and that you have the knowledge to edit and maintain after we finish our projects with you.
Thanks, Abby.
Any other questions? Okay, well, I know we're nearing time, so I appreciate everyone for being here today. And I really hope that this high-level overview of website basic building blocks was helpful. We'd really appreciate any feedback that you have for us. So I think Anya and Ben are going to drop a feedback form. So please give me some feedback. I love feedback if you cannot tell. And I look forward to seeing some of you at next week's office hours.
Yeah, definitely. We'll be adding the link to office hours also in our survey email that we'll be sending you, but please give us, we really also collect a lot of feedback every month about how we do and how we can improve, but we can only get that if you answer our survey. So please do that. And I just wanted to say thank you so much to Abby and the Rebloom team for leading the session. This is, you know, if this is not your first time learning about all these things, this is a great refresher to start the year strong. So make sure that I want to see all of you's websites looking better after today's session.
Carmela has a question in the chat just in case before y'all jump away.
Yeah.
I just dropped a quick answer, but Abby, maybe you want to touch on it anyway.
Yeah, so I think Carmela asked for services. So all these DIY platforms I have up here, the Squarespace, Wix, and Shopify, those usually are around $30 a month for the platform itself. And then getting a domain will cost you around $15 a year. And then typically, if you want to build your website all by yourself, DIY, it'll be around $300 to $600, I would say, in total. And you'll probably spend upwards of 80 plus hours before the learning curve. So before even actually reading about how to build websites. And then if you want to work with a web agency, that's typically going to look like they give you a lump sum. So that's anywhere from $4,000 to $10,000, depending on how complex your site is and what features you want. And then your final option is working with a contractor. So that's one person as opposed to like a whole agency that bundles everything together. And a site like that will probably be around the range is really like $50 to $100 per hour. And a very simple site, maybe five pages, all the pages I mentioned earlier, like the home, about, services, contact, all those things, that'll probably be around 50 hours of work as well. So that will be, well, I'll let you guys do the math, but I'll say that websites can get pretty pricey. So it's important to know exactly what you want, which is why the wireframing activity is very helpful. And also, it will be helpful to budget out some money for your website. It's unrealistic, I would say, to expect to spend $0 on your website. Even if you do it yourself, you're still going to end up paying for domain, hosting, probably content, and you're going to spend a lot of time putting all those things together for your website. Does that answer your question, Carmela? Yes. Okay, great. Well, it was really nice to meet everyone, and you feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn, check out our website. For Rebloom, our business cohort for this, or our 10-week program for the spring, our applications unfortunately did close last week, but our next cohort will start in June and applications will open late April and May. So shoot us an email to stay connected and we'll let you know when those applications open again.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Have a good night, everybody.